when did observation become criticism, or like now trashing someone? It's like, I just got done listening to the Let's Run podcast, not done with it, but their post-marathon project show. And, they're talking to Scott Fauble, who got under 210 for the second time. And then they addressed how so many people were upset with them on their website for saying that, 209 is just not that fast. And it's not. I mean, I just looked it up, half-ass internet research, kind of like Bill Simmons, and there's over 3,000 men have gone under 210 in the history of the marathon. So, in 209, that was fast when I started running in the late 70s and 80s. But for some reason, it's like people get upset. And it's like, okay, it's great that we had 7 guys break 210. The most we'd ever had before in a single race, United States that is, was 4. So that's an improvement. But hey, the world, to be elite, you really got to do 205 or under. And so, like I was talking about before, expectations, we need to step things up. This past year, 2020, was difficult, but back on February 29th, we had the Olympic trials, and we had a lot of people running in that race. And I used to think that was a good thing, having hundreds of people. The qualifying marks were like 219 and probably 245 for the women. They had 300 or 400 women. I have to Google it, but just my point is, I think we should make the Olympic trial standard the Olympic standard. It's 211.30 for men, 229.30 for women. Those are the only people who get to go run the trials. And, whoever does best on that day. And that way we would just assure that we've got some decent runners in there. Not decent, but just, make that the bar. You made the bar 219, 245, tons of people met it. Make the bar 211.30, 229, and I guarantee you people will meet that bar, and we'll have bigger fields, and it will improve the quality of our racing. And of course, we also need to, sponsor that. And they made a good point, Let's Run. They said, if I'm watching college football or basketball, I'm enjoying it watching Clemson play or Georgetown play. But, I'm not comparing it to the NFL. But when you're putting together a race that the whole point of it is, like the Marathon Project, is to go fast and run fast, then you can't help but compare it to other world-class events. And so that's just the nature of running. And speaking of making observations, and many thinking it's criticizing, trashing, or how dare you speak of these things, it's like, hey, that's just the way things are in terms of, that's how you get better. I mean, I listen to Adam Kroll all the time, and he says, back then, he played team sports especially, if the coach came up and said you're doing it wrong and pushed you, made you do it right, he was taking an interest in you and wanted you to be better. And that's all when we have these journalists talking about. And it seems like running especially, people get really butthurt. I mean, my gosh, the people came out of the woodwork when I said, hey, Killian didn't do he did what I expected him to do. Didn't do well in a flat 24-hour race. As people are like, how dare you speak of Killian? He's a god. And how dare you say that, you're a fat fuck. You don't have the qualities to do what Killian can do, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, sports journalism is full of guys. I mean, Bill Simmons, like I bring up all the time, he's one of the best around when it comes to talking about the NBA. Sorry about that. I just got done doing my workout, did about a 10K, and then the weasel calls me, and of course it cuts off the video. I was talking about how, Bill Simmons is one of the best NBA guys around. He does Book of Basketball on his podcast, and, he never played college basketball or professional basketball, but obviously he can talk basketball and he knows the game inside out. And so this whole concept that you can only speak of other endurance athletes if you're on their level, well, then we wouldn't talk at all, which would be also silly. So that was kind of my point. In theory, I should be tapering, so at least I won't do my kettlebell workout because I'm going to start my 6th day on Monday. But I was done my 10K, and then Blanca called me, and so I went out and did another couple miles with her. And of course, saw some urban outdoorsmen as usual. And we saw a fire truck because the lady lit the potted plants in front of this business on fire. It's not even that cold actually today. It's 50 degrees. Fire company had to come out and all that. So my taper kind of got not tapered as much because I really was planning on only doing 6. Ended up doing 8 or so. But I'm home now, and I'm going to try and take it easy the rest of the day. Go out and do something easy this evening. Comes to tapering, I know I'm not a big fan of tapering, and I often say the better in shape and the better your training's gone, the less taper you need. Because you taper too much, you just go into the event feeling sluggish and not feeling quite so right. It's people who don't really train need to taper because they need to be rested up as much as possible. And over the 40 years I've been doing this, I've noticed that, and if you watch like that Prep Cal track thing on the 2019 cross country season, the team Newberry Park, they do it. They do some pretty heavy training right up to the race because that's what your body's used to, and keep giving it more and more and you'll perform. And that's kind of my motto. Talking to Scott up in Canada, and he's looking forward to his race. It's interesting that me and him have completely two different types of training. We taper very quickly and not a lot, but training wise, he really enjoys going out doing 20 milers. Me, you look at my training peaks, especially without any races this year, I've only done maybe 3 or 4 workouts over 13 miles. Usually bulk of my training is 90 minutes to 2 hours, maybe 2.5, 3 hours at most. And then I go out in the evenings, where he, of course, enjoys doing that longer stuff. It's interesting looking up Kouros' stuff about his training, and he said that he used to only do like 12K at most in a workout, and he would also do some intervals like 3 times 4K, 6 times 2K type of thing like that. And then, of course, he just did his long runs were during races. And I used to do that myself, kind of. Of course, 2020, there just hasn't been any real world races. Of course, one of the things I thought was kind of interesting with Kouros talking about the 12K, I think he's probably doing what Bob Kennedy did back here in the 90s and the O's in America. He was our best 5K 10 guy, first American under 13 minutes in the 5K. But he used to say he was only training like 70, 80 miles a week. And I kind of think he hurt American distance running, because we used to train like the East Africans, but then we started going, oh, well, Bob Kennedy's only doing 70, 80 miles a week. And, the thing is, when those guys they're so fast, that means they're only running like 10 hours a week. And so people started doing what he was saying, and I think they spent more time doing some cross training and things like that, and just didn't put in the endurance miles, and our times and suffered. Kind of goes hand in hand with how, we've have so few guys under 210 in the marathon. But I think one of the things that came out with Bob Kennedy, and I'm sure it was Kouros too, was Bob Kennedy didn't tell everybody that he was like doing 5-mile warm-up and a 3-mile cool down and then doing 10-mile workouts. So he was doing 100, 120, 140-mile weeks. He just wasn't counting all that. In fact, I just saw Emma Colburn on a post that she did, and she was saying how she did like a 8-mile tempo run on the treadmill. But she at least put in the tweet, Instagram post that, she did like 3-4 mile warm up, then did her 8-mile tempo, and then a couple mile cool down. So she ended up getting 13, 14 miles in, and she's only running that 3,000 steeplechase. So, you kind of deceiving, especially when you're looking at mileage. Don't take it at face value, because sometimes it isn't what it seems to be. Nice little fire on F Street by Urban Outdoors woman. And I'm out for some afternoon, evening miles. One thing I've noticed impact the most with the whole congestive heart failure thing is, I did the race across Tennessee and back across Tennessee 10 miles a day. And as long as I kept it flat and walking with a little bit of running, I was okay. But I couldn't go up a hill for months and still really get winded. And I guess it is kind of true. The ejection fraction of my ventricle is only like 30%. Normal's 50. And I kind of at first was like, my heart rate's not going up. And it's true, when I'm out here doing these workouts, it's in the 90s or 100s. But basically what's happening is I'm not getting I have bradycardia. I'm not having tachycardia. So the heart's not beating really fast, but it's definitely not pumping enough blood, oxygenated blood, it seems like, because I don't get winded. I just can't go any faster. And so it is what it is. 6 days in the dome starts Monday morning, and a day and a half. Not much of a plan. I should at least get 100 miles. First I was thinking of just walking the whole way, but I have this Shakespeare thing, to run or not to run, that is the question. My running is pretty slow, but I'm not a pure walker like Yolanda, my friend Bob Davidson, or Scott Burton. I just can't walk forever. I've never been kind of a rhythm athlete. Probably why I've enjoyed cross country And probably why I like ultras too, because, I mean, yeah, some people can run rhythmically like 12 hours, 100 miles, like Zach Bitter, just like a metronome, Bob Hearn, and Jamil's brother, Nick Curry. They can do it for almost 24 hours, but I'm just terrible at that sort of stuff. So, I don't know, 100 miles would be nice. 200 is doable. It's just a matter of getting my head around it. And as I keep talking about, I really need to just put expectations aside and do what feels good and what I feel like I'm up to doing. So we shall see. Earlier I was talking about expectations and marathoning and how 2:09 is just not that fast, and we really need to have that perspective. Well, it's interesting when they had Malcolm Gladwell on Let's Run. He said one thing that is of interest too is here in America especially, we're just big people. I mean, I'm a big guy. I've always been a big guy. I mean, when I was in 6th grade, I was over 100 pounds and had to play against 9th graders in football. So I've always been big. And they're saying, football is the perfect sport for Americans because you're almost rewarded to be large and encouraged to be big. And so running, not so much, especially in today's current world. And he said, but my dad or grandfather grew up and everybody was, in the World War II, were a lot smaller. So everybody in the high school could conceivably go out and run a couple miles without a whole lot of effort, because they were all 5'6", 5'7", 120 pounds. And now, your typical Americans, big like me. And so that definitely probably plays into the whole sporting thing. Though, you watch basketball, football, and obviously those athletes out there are doing things that you can't do, but for some reason, and that's why I think running isn't as revered in this community. But, I think if we'd ever get some weight divisions in races, I think it would open up a lot and make the sport more inclusive and more competitive and be a lot more fun. And not just for, big boys like me, but, guys who are 6 foot tall and 200 pounds of pure muscle, they could compete against each other. And I think it would really make the sport more popular and increase participation. It is the day after Christmas, and my Instagram feed is, of course, full of Christmas celebrations. Doesn't look like a whole lot of people are really doing the social distancing very much. Seeing a lot of multi-generational photos, friends hanging out. But, one thing that I've also noticed is, what's up with the matching pajamas? When did that become a thing? I guess I'm sound like an old man, like, hey, you kids, get off my lawn. But, I mean, maybe you put the kids in matching pajamas, but now it's mom, dad, everybody in matching pajamas. And it's funny, usually the dads look like, kill me now. But I guess it's the whole, making everything kind of kid land. I mean, look at Halloween. When I was a kid growing up, Halloween was for kids. Adults didn't dress up, and now it's a completely adult holiday.